In this episode, we are going to talk about some of the tactics we use to know our audiences, some of the tactics businesses out there use to know their audiences, but even more importantly, after you've deployed these tactics, what do you use that knowledge for? The priority should not be making it convenient for your employees or making it convenient for your business to work. The priority should be making the customer more satisfied. That informs the big question we have is, how do you know your audience? What is the right data to collect, right? What is the right data to collect from your audience? And as an entrepreneur, the first data point is yourself. Figure out the problem that you want to solve for yourself and try to translate it for the world, right? Try to understand where you differ from the world. Initially, actually, what we wanted to do was have a podcasting room, a dedicated podcasting room where we have these 2 or 3 tables and we have the cameras automated and people are booking the podcast online and they're choosing how many cameras they have. They book the room, they just go in and automatically run their own studio. In this episode, we're going to be talking about knowing your audience. If you haven't watched the last 3 episodes, I encourage you to watch them after this. So what does it take and what does it mean? And of what value would it be for you to know your audience? If you know the audience, what do you do with that knowledge? For most people, knowing your audience means collecting this amount of data and using it to target maybe similar people or using it to feed information to your audience that you think they may like. And while obviously that approach works for some people, it is not the most efficient way or the most efficient use of your knowledge of your audience. I want to start with 2 examples in big businesses today that have the capacity to know their audience and how they use this knowledge to change the behaviors of their audience. The first example is with MTN. So if you call MTN customer care to ask about something, because MTN does not have the capacity to receive all the calls at the same time and to answer everyone who calls, what they've done is collect information that is most commonly asked. So if maybe 10% of the people call to ask about SMS bundles, MTN knows that. If 90% of the people call to ask about mobile money or to complain about sending money to the wrong number and so on and so forth, MTN knows about that. And what MTN has done is create an automated menu. So if you call MTN right now, it will first read to you its automated menu so you can see if what you need to be helped with can actually be resolved with that automated menu or you need to talk to someone. And what that happens is you'd go through, say, for example, you sent mobile money to the wrong person. What will happen is you'll call MTN, they run you through the menu, and one of the options would be if you sent mobile money to the wrong person, press 6 or something. And when you press that, instead of giving you someone to speak to, MTN will just read for you. An automated voice will just read for you the instructions of the steps you need to take in order to reverse this transaction. Sometimes the automated menu can even go as far as helping you do the transaction itself. So it can say maybe press 2 to reverse the transaction and so on and so forth. So that is one way a big business that has the capacity to know its clients has actually employed that information and that knowledge to help the business grow and work better. The other example I want to give is Stanbic Bank. So Stanbic Bank also has the ability to know its clients. Again, since a bank, it actually has the privilege of directly asking you for your information. So with the bank, you have to give them your ID, you have to tell them about your source of income, and so on and so forth. And this information is very useful for the bank because then they can know who exactly you are. They can know whether you're employed or not. They can know how old you are. They can even make an educated guess about your education level and so on and so forth. So what Stanbic did when they launched their mobile app is instead of targeting me, say, with an SMS telling me, hey, download our e-banking app and start banking with Stanbic, what they did is, first of all, they reduced the lobby within their banking hall. So initially, you would go to Stanbic, get a place to sit. They had benches on the sides, get a place to sit as you wait to be served. But what they did now is to reduce their halls. And in banks, in their branches, like the one at Acacia where they couldn't reduce the halls, they even took away the chairs. So you go to the hall and they have a few chairs set for you to sit. And Also, maybe, so the biggest part of the hall is empty space. But what they do is, after you're frustrated standing for a long time to follow the queue, when you go to be served, the teller will then tell you, hey, this is something you could have actually done over the app. And this is impactful because you have actually experienced the problem yourself that they're trying to solve. And a big part of how they are solving it is changing your behavior in a more practical way rather than just sending you the information. So this is one way. These are the two examples I wanted to start with as I introduce this whole idea of knowing your audience. In this episode, we are going to talk about some of the tactics we use to know our audiences, some of the tactics businesses out there use to know their audiences, but even more importantly, after you've deployed these tactics, what do you use that knowledge for? With me today is Glenna. Yes, Glenna.
Hi, everyone. You are most welcome to those who are here for the first time and to those who have been here before, who have seen our other episodes. Welcome back. We appreciate. So, Kenneth, according to what you've said above, should businesses get to know their clients so they can manipulate them? Because it really feels like that is what Stanbic Bank is doing.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I personally feel frustrated when I can see that transition. So when I banked with Stanbic when I was still a student and they don't have these online banking facilities before, it was so obvious that the halls were designed to accommodate me, to allow me to sit comfortably as I wait because they understand that they expect big numbers in the halls. But right now, it feels like they're just trying to chase me out of the hall, right? Which, of course, I understand. I mean, the times are different, the technology is available, and it's perhaps even more convenient for them and for myself. But also, even if you look at MTN, what would happen with MTN is if you called and whatever you wanted to have resolved isn't part of their menu, of the automated menu, they're going to make you wait for a very long time, like maybe 10 minutes plus. But even if whatever you want is part of their menu, if it's the last part on the menu, they're going to make you listen to this boring automated thing that runs for maybe another 5 minutes, just so you can wait to listen if whatever you want resolved is there. So these businesses have taken this data, and what they've done is modify the way they interact with their clients so that they can serve them better, which is, I think, a first step. But in my opinion, again, this is a big thing I know about collecting, knowing your audience and collecting information about your audience. This should be targeted towards, the priority should not be making it convenient for your employees or making it convenient for your business to work. The priority should be making the customer more satisfied, right? So, for example, MTN could make an easy change. When I call, maybe they could run the menu. Maybe they have nothing. Maybe there is nothing I can do about there is nothing they can do about the menu. But if I called and instead of them making me wait, so they could tell me the first thing is, if you've listened to our menu before and you know whatever you want is not part of our menu, just maybe press 1 and we are going to call you back as soon as we have a next available agent. Whatever. So that is one thing, because MTN, they own the calls. I don't think it's going to cost them to call me, right? And they can send me an SMS. If it takes, say, 3 hours, maybe the argument would be, what if the 3-hour period, what if by the time we call you, maybe in a meeting, or maybe you're recording this podcast. What they can do is send me send me an SMS 5 minutes before, again, because it's their SMSs, it's not costing them anything, right? Telling me, hey, Kenneth, we are going to call you now to follow up on the customer care thing you made, right? And in that case, the frustration is not there. If I want to complain, I would call MTN and then I would put my phone down because I know they're going to call me back, whatever it is. Even by the time I start talking to the teller, I'm calm. But usually when you call the teller, there used to be a lot of memes of people insulting the tellers, because after I've waited 10 minutes, if the teller picks me up and he tells me, oh, we actually can't help you with that, it feels like an insult to me, right?
It does. Yes, waited all the time.
Exactly. So that's why there's a lot of rage around that. But some of the solutions, again, if they're tailored around, maybe for MTN, I think that they're tailored around capacity management, because they cannot hire enough tailors to pick up everyone's calls, obviously. But if instead they think about if they think about the client instead rather than their business from the approach of the audience, because they collect all this data to know their audience, then they produce a more satisfactory product, which I would be very happy MTN customer. And whenever I build, rather whenever they bring a new product, I would be happy to try it out because I know at least that their customer care is accessible, in that way. Yeah, and for Stanbic, first of all, it's very manipulative what they did, right? And I don't know if I'm the only one who feels it. I haven't had people complain about it, but I know other banks like StanChart also did the same approach. StanChart ran out of business, actually. They're no longer in business.
As a matter of fact, I don't know StanChart.
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. So StanChart did the exact same thing. They figured that most of their clientele is corporate. They started by reducing their branches. They made their mobile application very robust. I think it was the best. If they're still around, it's the best. So internet banking for them was so smooth. But the problem if you don't communicate directly that, if you don't convincingly tell people that we are not doing this to insult you, we are doing this to change your behavior. If you try to trick them, again, these are like psychology, marketing tricks, and so on and so forth. If you try to trick people, then when people get frustrated, they may not understand your incentive. Yeah. But what Stanbic could have done actually is also quite easy. It could send me an SMS saying, hey, you know what? If you want to come to the bank for this and this and this, the easiest way, we can tell you when people are in the bank, right? So we can tell you when the bank is going to be crowded and when it's not. And the easiest way you can know that is if you book your appointment, right? So you can give us a range and say, I'm planning to come on Monday afternoon. And we can tell you, oh, okay, maybe 120 people also want to come in Monday afternoon. So be ready to spend an hour. And the only way you can do that is through the app. Right? So now I have the app to book my session at the bank, but the app can also do all these other things that they want me to do on the app anyway. So then it's up to me to really, really want to go to the bank or to actually use the app to do the banking, right? So that would be one thing, because most people hesitant to use the apps because they're not safe. People worry that they may be hacked and so on and so forth. But if even before I log in, I can actually schedule my appointment to the bank because that doesn't need me to log in, then it would be up to me to gauge, okay, this is really important. If I'm going, say, to pick a statement, should I really go to the bank to pick it, or should I log in and download it automatically, right? If they tell me, okay, you may have to plan maybe 2 or 3 hours to stay in the bank because we're expecting this much traffic today. You understand? So those are like two quick things that I've thought about, like these problems as well. But the approach is not coming up obviously with clever ways to resolve your client. The approach is think about the convenience of your audience first, right? Let that be the motivation of knowing your audience. Yeah. So you think about their convenience, and then that also informs the big question we have is, how do you know your audience? What is the right data to collect, right? What is the right data to collect from your audience? Even if you, like, say, banks, the government chooses for the banks what the bank can collect, right? But what of that data is actually useful, right? So that is a big part of know your audience part is, first of all, know what you want to use that knowledge for. And that knowledge and whatever you know from there is going to inform what actual part of your audience you want to know. Yes.
So how is Uvotam learning their audience?
Yes.
How do they find out data about your clients and your audience at large?
Exactly. I think as an entrepreneur, Uvotam, we operate almost as a startup. And as an entrepreneur, the first data point is yourself, right? So you set out to solve this big problem in the world, but the first person you're most likely planning to solve it for is you. Yes. And that is the first thing is, so you want to start a podcasting business. Do you want to do a podcast? We started with a Big Conversations by Ordinary People podcast, right? So that was we were the first data points, Mark and myself. And the idea is, how many cameras do we need to do this podcast? Do we need to buy chairs? Do we need to rent a hall? Do we need to buy mics and things like that? So we already have the initial, we are the initial audience. And so we've already picked what we need as a podcasting business. This is what we'll need to produce on podcast, right? So that is the first thing. And again, as an entrepreneur, your job is now to translate. So now the idea is to think about other people who we don't know where they stay, right? So if you want to do a podcast, and we have our studio in Chanja because we put it in Chanja because that's where we stay. The two of us can do our recording. But if you don't stay in Chanja, will you be able to do that? So now that is us translating our problem for other people. So this is a similar problem we had. We decided to put our studio in Chanja because we stay in Chanja. But now how do we solve? Yes, how do we solve the problem of someone else who's not us, right? So that is a big part of the data point now. So we say, okay, so part of our service is going to be you can order and we can come and record from your home, right? So that we say things like that, right? That is one approach. Is you as the entrepreneur figure out the problem that you want to solve for yourself and try to translate it for the world, right? Try to understand where you differ from the world, where other people differ from you, and see how you can modify this exact solution to meet those specific differences, right? Yes, so that is one thing. So the other thing is, if you look at our wedding business, for example, the other way of learning, getting that initial data point, is from the competition, from the people you want to be, right? So for our wedding business, the initial step is looking at what other wedding businesses are doing, right? So we look at a lot of other people's weddings and how they're setting up and how they're doing that. And that gives us an assumption of this is what clients expect, especially if we try to compare these people. So if you look at, say, 4 or 5 competitors, so this is actually before we started the wedding business. So if we look at 4 or 5 entrepreneurs out there who are doing something similar to what we want to do, we want to compare them and see who of these is more successful. Yeah. Also, who of these would I hire to be like my wedding person if I wasn't doing weddings? Yes. And then compare those things and say, okay, so this is probably what I would like to do because it's making this person successful. This is probably what I would like to do from this person because it's is something that I would like to do. But what you don't know ideally is you're taking knowledge that these people have learned from their own clients, right? So you're actually learning from their audiences to know your own audience, because these people are actually working in the field and they're using data. Some of them, it may not be conscious. They may think, oh, we are just talented. Or some of them may be thinking the same way. They'll be like, okay, we're also just copying from Instagram. But what they're also doing is taking feedback from their own clients. If you deliver to your client and your client is frustrated, you take that feedback in. So you bring a product called real-time deliveries, right? So you bring quick deliveries and things like that, right? So yeah, a big part of how we learn again from the audience is that other approaches. To start, let me look at what people who are doing something similar to what I'm doing. It may not be the exact same thing. You may have a very innovative product that no one has done before, but it is an industry that exists, right? There is probably someone doing something extremely similar to what you're doing. The first part is learn from them. Know, first of all, what they're doing right, but also, if you have the opportunity, know what they're doing wrong. Yeah, for example, the other thing we learned with podcasting after we had started our own is watching other people's podcasts, right? To see, okay, what are these people doing right? What are these people doing wrong? And so on and so forth. Yeah. The biggest part we saw for us was the camera work. Now people have improved a lot, so it may be hard for me to give an example. But initially, before we started our podcast, people were using, the same camera moving from one guest to another, things like that. Yeah, people were using phones and so on and so forth. And we saw that and we were like, okay, this is not very convenient to look at. People were not producing their sound perfectly well, and said, okay, these are things also we want to improve, because we know that from ourselves as the audience, we know that this is good, but also we know that if this person, you can even read other people's comments. If you read, say, the YouTube comment and the comment is like, hey, I like the picture, but the sound is not kawa, that may not be your client per se, but that is a potential audience that you're looking for as well. And yes, and you're learning from that. And so the idea of learning, like how we've personally learned from our audience, is initially, we are the audience, so we are building something for ourselves. The second part is we are learning from how other people who have come before us, or how other people who are better than us, how they're solving these problems that we may have, or some of the things that we may not know, how they're deploying these tricks in the trade, and so on and so forth. And now the third part is the retention part. The first two examples I gave about MTN and Stambik, yes. So the other part is for the client you serve, because every gig you go on is a lesson on its own. So for the client you serve, where there are frustrations. Do we spend more time setting up than we anticipated? So, for example, podcast. Usually we tell clients, okay, we'll come and set up for 30 minutes, but do we actually do 30-minute setup? Does it take longer? Things like that. Yes. So that informs, first of all, also how much time we set for a product. Say if we say, for us, we have a package here where we give you, starting at 250K, we do for you a podcast for up to 1.5 hours, right? But that time includes the setting up, right? So that means, when that has been informed by what we know to be the average time for setting up for something ordinary, for an ordinary podcast. That we know also to be part of when a client, for example, is just starting. We actually have another offer that we give. This we usually tell clients who have committed to do a long series with us, where we do the first episode, we repeat it as many times as you want until you get it right. Yeah. So if you say you commit to say recording a 12 episode podcast, for the first episode, if we don't get it right the first time, we redo it for free. We redo it for free until even if it's 100 times, we redo it for free until we get it right, both sides. So even for you, if you go and look at your first episode and you're like, okay, I wanted to say this and I forgot. We understand, because we know that for most people who record podcasts, they're not professional media people. And a big part of how they get comfortable doing this is by doing it more times and more times and more times. And so we give that offer as well. We give you that offer, but that makes you very comfortable when you're recording the first time. Most people actually get to the first time, but for sure that for the first time, you're not under too much pressure to get it right, because it's not going to cost you money to do it again, right? Yeah. So again, we have a few other things. For example, we also do real-time photo delivery when we do weddings. But the reason we do that again is because people ask, during lunch, the bride can come and tap you. Hey, I want to put on my Instagram, what's wrong? And if you tell the bride, hey, you know what, now we have to remove the card from the camera, blah, 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 blah. You just kind of ruin their day, right? So we now know that when a client hires us, we tell them from the beginning that, hey, don't worry. During the transition from church to the reception, we'll give you some pictures to share. During the lunch break, we'll give you some pictures to share. Like that as, again, we've learned our audiences to pick up on that as well, yeah? Yeah, so that's, I think in terms of our own business, the initial step is build a solution for yourself. The second step is learn from how other people are doing it. You're not the first one. There is nothing you can do in the universe where you're the actual first person to ever do it, right? So learn from how other people are doing what you're doing or something similar what they're doing. And then the other thing is your audience itself is a teacher. Learn from them actively. When you're going to do the work, that's the best time for you to learn and to deploy the lessons you've learned. Yes.
I definitely have to ask, what are some of the changes that are arising from Uvotam knowing its audience?
I think the first thing is, as I've mentioned with the podcasting, we've grown because initially the inspiration for our initial podcast, Big Conversations by Ordinary People, was the Joe Rogan podcast, which is usually 2 people podcast. So initially when we got equipment, our assumption was that it's going to be 2 people talking on a table. So most of the equipment we had was maybe you have a mic stand on a table, you have 2 chairs, and you have maybe 3 or 2 cameras, and so on and so forth. But what again we've learned from working for other people is the majority of people actually want to do the podcast thing is like a party. People want to do podcasts together. They want to be like 3 or 5 guys in their own chivozi, and they expect you to. It's very hard to automate, because initially actually what we wanted to do was have a podcasting room. A dedicated podcasting room where we have these 2 or 3 tables, and we have the cameras automated, and people are booking the podcast online, and they're choosing how many cameras they have. They book the room, they just go in and automatically run their own studio, basically. But again, from the clientele, we figured out that may not actually work, because almost everyone has their own needs, and people have different things they want to do with their podcasting. People, that thing we thought we didn't like, where the camera moves, some people like that. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So again, a big part of what we learned with podcasting from what people are doing and what our clients are asking from us is what is the most ideal way to do podcasts. And the other thing is the wedding thing that I've told you about. So weddings, for example, how do you plan to go on someone's wedding? So that you give them a satisfactory work if they are far from Kampala. We are based in Kampala, but if someone is calling you to Mbale, how do you plan that and things like that? And, how do you price your product to cater for something like that. So because in Mbale, you have to probably go the day before, you have to do some of those pre-wedding things as well, and some of them may require you to move to Mbale and compose things like that. Yeah, so a lot of that is we learned as we started doing the job. You do the job, you see this problem you didn't imagine, then maybe you call some of your friends who have been doing weddings for a long time and tell you, hey, no, for us we charge for 2 days if you're far from Kampala, things like that, and we didn't expect something like that. Yeah, the other part is also the creativity. So when it comes to wedding, for example, we are offering some things that no one is offering, right? So we are offering, we do a romantic short film. This is a scripted short film where we force you, the couple, to act. We give you a script and tell you, okay, now we're going to record you guys going to buy the rings. We want to record you guys having dinner and want you guys to have like a romantic conversation like this, blah, blah, blah. And want you guys to make the impression as if it's natural, right? And we go through it with the couples, and the couples like it. And one of the things we've actually learned from that is some couples, it sort of allows them to discover themselves, so they start giving us ideas. Okay, I want to talk about this joke within the romantic thing. And some couples even allow us to show those on the wedding itself. So we come and record that romantic thing and then we show it on the wedding. And yeah, it seems like it was real, but everything is pre-scripted. Yeah, it's scripted. But again, some of that creativity, people like that. People like a little bit of drama to their life, people like a little bit of the fakeness. It's not so bad, it's not so bad if it's coming from a good place. And yeah, some of that we've learned as we've started working.
All right. So what is the role of podcasting in getting to know your audience? Like how does this?
That's a good thing. So the big reason we are doing this podcast itself is to encourage businesses and entrepreneurs, people who are running brands, influencers, to consider doing podcasts. Yeah, we hope that they do it with us, but that's not required. The point of us publishing this podcast is to encourage them to venture into this podcasting field if they haven't yet, because we believe that podcasting in its own is a standalone advert. If, for example, this whole episode, I'm talking about Uvotam products, right? This is, it's almost like an ad. If you're listening to the podcast, you're picking up a little bit of knowledge on how you can learn and how you can use data you pick about your clients. But also a big part is now you know what we do, right? You know our business. And this is the exact pitch we're giving other people. But how is this useful to know your audience? Now, let's take a simple podcasting life cycle. You set out to do a podcast and say release 5 episodes, right? All these episodes are different. Yeah. So what happens is you're going to see which episode is giving you more subscribers, right? So YouTube gives you those numbers. When someone listens to your podcast and they click subscribe, YouTube will tell you that conversion is because of this specific video, right? You're also going to know how many views per episode, right? So if you publish an episode and it has more views than before, it's mostly because maybe people are sharing it outside YouTube. Yeah. So people like the episode and then they send to their buddies on WhatsApp and be like, hey, yeah, check this out. Yeah. So that gives you also a little bit of sense of, okay, people want to hear me talk about this, right? So if this is directly for your products, if you're a bank, for example, and you're running this podcast, maybe it's talking about mortgaging, right? You have a mortgaging service and you're running one episode about mortgaging and it ends up having more views than you'd naturally have. That already is a sense that, okay, maybe more people than we expect are interested in this product. Yes. So that's one thing. The other thing is direct comments. So with podcasting is people are going to comment directly, right? So people would say, people are going to disagree with you. If you come in and say, okay, so we have this product and this is, maybe we are selling our houses at 1 billion. People are going to make jokes on the comment section. They're like, man, these guys, I think, are selling their houses to save only, things like that. And you'll know, okay, maybe I'm overpricing my product. Yes. So that's the one thing. But also, the other thing is to justify your own other marketing campaigns, right? So, for example, the Stanbic example I gave in the beginning, right? So if Stanbic started, if they had a podcast where they would come and tell us, okay, we are removing the chairs from the halls not because we're out of money to put chairs. Also, and so it's because we want to encourage people to use the app. And it could be it could be an episode about the app. Telling people, this is why you should use the app, addressing people's fears that they don't worry about getting hacked. The app is actually secure, and also like we are bridging that knowledge gap, telling people that, hey, you know what? It's just having a phone. If you have an Android phone, an iPhone, just go to the store and download and so on and so forth. That bridging that gap in a long form content rather than, if they sent me an SMS saying, hey, by the way, you can now bank online, blah, 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 send fees online, download our app. That is not very informative,
You
right?
probably even ignore the
Yes,
SMS.
exactly. I'll probably ignore the SMS. But if I sat there, because yesterday I watched something that was interesting about mortgaging. Today I come back to check what's the new thing, and it's about the app. And then it makes sense. I've been frustrated every time I go to the bank thinking, these guys may be running broke and maybe I should take my money away. They can't even afford chairs for us. I've been frustrated, but now they explain it to me. They're like, okay, the reason we are doing this is because we want you to start using the app. Yes, yeah. We want you to start using the app because it's more convenient for you, but also it's making our business more efficient and things like that. If they did that, the podcast is probably the only platform where you have that, because also a two-person conversation, right? So they could do a podcast where they sit with one of their clients every time, talk about a project. Stanbic, for example, gives loans for people building, right? So they could sit and say, tell us about your experience with our loaning services, and is it a good thing? Because most people are scared of bank loans because they think the bank is out to get you. They think the bank is giving you money you can't pay back, so they can take your shit. So that's also the other thing is, if Stanbic sat down with a guy and they told, Stanbic gave me 2 billion, this is how we used it, this is actually how the money is given out, these are the contracts I have, this is a grace period, from a real person, who has actually built, that's more convincing than any ad you'd make about loans, things like that. And so the thing about podcasting and knowing your client is, first of all, podcasts are very great version of advertising, but more importantly, they give you the detail. You have it's the only platform right now, I think, online where you have the level of attention from your clients that you cannot get anywhere else, right? Yes, and also the contract is right. If you're giving me information about mortgaging or you're giving me information about loans, bank loans, this is information maybe I'm already looking for on TikTok, right? But now if I'm getting it directly from the guy who's giving me the loan from the actual bank, you may save me from getting the logbook loan. You see those loan sharks where I'm getting maybe a loan at like maybe 50% interest and a very short time. If you tell me, actually, we can give you a lot more money, we can give you maybe 5 billion at a lower interest rate, to do a project like this is how we give it, these are the payment terms, this is how other people are using it, and things like that. And it's like financial literacy, that's a part of podcast like a bank can do, and it could be very helpful. It could convert more people into banking, but even the people who are already banking with you, it could sort of enlighten them about how much more of your products they can use. Yes.
Actually, that's it for my questions. I think the podcast approach, my take from this episode is that they are relatable. So the clients would associate with them more than the ads. All right. That is it. Thank you.